Welcome, and in this session we are going to discuss about organizational buying behavior. Till now I was discussing about all the theories of individual customers buying decision or family buying decision, which means I am talking about the household sector. Now for the first time I am referring to the business sector or B2B purchase behavior, and this will again be divided into two modules. So, after completing the first module of this particular topic, you will be able to understand the characteristics and importance of the B2B market, the components of business market, the types of industrial purchase, the multiple buying influences and conflicts in the buying decisions in industrial buying. Now, we first define what organizational buying is. Organizational buying is the decision process by which organizations establish the need for purchased products and services and identify, evaluate and choose amongst the alternative brands and suppliers. Industrial purchase is mostly related to either the purchase of spare parts, raw material or even finished goods. For example, many computer assemblers may buy chips from Intel, or many laptop makers may buy chips from Intel. So, this is also B2B buy where they are buying spare parts. Sometimes it may be a full purchase also, say BSNL is buying 30 Toyota Innova for their own, or Toyota Qualis for their own consumption. Own consumption money, the consumption of the officers of BSNL. So, this is a finished product which is bought again, but it is again a B2B sector. So, these are different kind of purchase situations, and now I am talking about types of business markets, and we can see here broadly there are 6 type of business markets: agricultural market, reseller market, government market, service market, non-business business market and international market. I will explain. First is agricultural market. Agricultural market envisages the services involved in the movement of the final agricultural produce from the farm gate to the consumer, and several interrelated actions characterized here. There is a production planning, sowing, reaping, harvesting, grading, packing, transportation, warehousing, food processing, distribution, advertising and finally selling. In B2B sector, a lot of innovation can be done, particularly in agrarian sector, which ITC Echoupal has shown. ITC Echoupal has came up with a concept of abolition of intermediary in the sector and use of ICT, that is in the this B2B situation, where they have opened an e-hub where a Sanchalak sits and he provides, he is actually a literate person, and not only literate, he can read English, write, and he can surf internet and all this. He is also given a training by ITC. He sits in an e-hub in which he keeps he talks with the different kind of farmers, and he tries to give them information about high yielding variety of seeds, weather report and all this thing, and by this he maintains a liaison with the farmers. The farmers who register for ITC Echoupal has to sell their produce instead of any middleman directly to ITC. The e-hub Sanchalak will buy it on behalf of ITC, and per gunny bag he will pay, he gets a commission. Now, he will buy at the time when the product is having the highest bid in the domestic market. So, this is the way the farmers, because it is purchased at the highest bid, the farmer will get more price for his produce, because otherwise, as we know in the Indian agrarian sector, the farmer the product is bought from the farmers at a very peanut price, whereas we as a customer are buying it almost in a very high price. So, this way ITC is actually benefiting both the farmers and the customers, as well as the company is also earning profit, because farmers are they are buying it from the farmers at the highest bid, and they are selling it in the customer, after they are processing it, packaging it and selling it to the customers in a very at a very reasonable price. So, this kind of innovation could be done. Then there are some kind of reseller market. Buyers may produce products to resell them to others. The reseller market consists of wholesalers, retailers, distributors. Resellers may confine their business to a single brand product or work as a multi-brand product dealer or a distributor. Government market. Now, consumer group this particular consumer group government market comprises of central and state government, other local government units such as municipality, PWD, state electricity board and many more. It must be noted that the government market is in aggregate accounts for the maximum amount of purchases by any consumer group in India. All the government concerns together engage in B2B operations worth crores of rupees. They purchase bulk amount of goods and services across the year. Primarily, government purchases wide range of products like military equipment, office supplies, buildings, clothing, vehicles and many other type of equipments. Services market. So, services marketing in general refers to both B2C and B2B. So, service when I am talking about B2B includes telecommunication services, financial services, hotel, hospitals, aviation, car, personal care, consultancy and many more. This is not when they are providing service to the customer, it is when they are procuring products for providing service to the customer, like hospitals buying medicines from say Frank Ross or any other seller, hotels buying food and housekeeping stuffs from some other manufacturers. So, like this. Non-business business market, this is an NGO market or not for profit oriented business when they are purchasing anything, and another one is the international market or the global marketing, and this refers to the marketing process performed by companies beyond their home country and across countries. This strategy uses an expansion of the system used in the home country of the firm. It refers to the firm level marketing practices to operate worldwide, as well as segmentation and targeting, entry mode in selection, whether you should go for a joint venture or you should go directly for procuring any amalgamation with any company, or you will buy any company in the abroad nation. So, whether you will launch a manufacturing unit there, or you will open up only a packaging unit there, or you don't just tie up with some distributing agency. So, these are the decisions which you have to take when you are operating in the international market. Now, I will talk about some special characteristics of the industrial market. Now, industrial buying is related to the products that are meant for further production, operations or resale, and these purchases are generally purchases of equipment, raw materials, semi-finished goods. As I said, they are relatively small buyers and small sellers. For example, I am selling textile machineries, so I can just sell textile machineries to the textile manufacturers only. I can sell jute, raw jute to the jute product manufacturers only. So, therefore, there are very small number of buyers and sellers, and they are geographically usually, particularly when I am talking about the agrarian sector, they are geographically concentrated. And hence, a long term relationship with suppliers and buyers is crucial, because it is by losing one single customer, the marketer is going to lose crores of his business. The demand for a product of industrial buyer is often derived than that of the final product. What is derived? Derived means the demand for textile machinery or raw cotton would depend on the demand of textile garments in the country. Many times, the organizations depute some professional purchasing agents to complete a purchase on their behalf. They are called buying specialists. Often, financial organizations, they employ brokers like this. B2B sales often calls for selling several entities within the buying center, which means whenever you are going to sell a product to a business house, you are not only selling to the business house, actually you have to motivate layers of people, the purchase manager, the finance manager, the engineer of the organization, who will actually give the specify the technical or judge the technical attributes of the product. So, you have to actually talk to several entities and satisfy them before they take a purchase decision. As an industrial market is often regulated by specialists, it is more likely that buyers would mention exact specification of the product. And many agricultural firms often prefer to lease public warehouse space to combat with the fluctuating market demands. For any bigger mass scale purchase, the organizations engaged in competitive bidding or price discovery mechanism like Coal India, then spectrum trading, then BSNL, and negotiation mentioning the product specification, delivery, price, mode of payment, transportation, etc. Now, there is some basic difference between the B2B market and B2C market. So, in B2B market, and this is mainly because on these aspects, that is the 6 different aspects. First is regarding the product. Relatively in B2B, it is relatively technical. Machineries or spare parts associated with services, associated services are very important. And in consumer marketing, it is depending on the need of the customer, the product may be standardized or customized. Customers are more interested in the functional attributes of the product rather than simply in the technical ones. I am talking about promotion. So, there the emphasis on personal selling, as it is easier to explain typical product specification in one-to-one or case-to-case basis, and you have to motivate different level of people who are already technically very sound. Consumer marketing emphasis is more on advertising because it is required to communicate in mass scale. Distribution, this is relatively shorter, often direct channels. In consumer marketing, the product passes en route through a number of intermediary links to consumer. Consumer relations, comparatively long term and multifaceted, and here we see comparatively irregular contact, may be special offer or festive bonanzas. Decision making process, this is obvious, many times it is a joint decision, and not only joint decision, this is joint decision by people coming from different origin, different background, and having diverse interest. Whereas, here consumer marketing, individual or household takes a decision. Here there is an emotional tie within the household. Here it is actually fully a rational decision, no emotional tie as such. So, the chance of conflict is much higher than the consumer marketing, and resolve of conflict is much difficult in B2B marketing rather than in consumer marketing. Price, competitive bidding by calling tenders for unique items, list prices prevalent only for some standard items when we are talking about B2B. B2C is actually MRPs, the list prices. What are the different purchase situations in industrial market? 3 mainly. Straight rebuy. Straight rebuy means, say company A is buying papers and other stationery items from company B. Now, they know what are the kind of stationery and papers they will buy, and whenever the stock is depleted, they just place an order to buy it. So, they need not to judge the specification of the product or anything, because it is almost like a routine response behavior in the consumer decision making. Then is the modified rebuy. When I know the vendor, when the company A knows company B as the vendor, but in terms of paper they want a special kind of bonded paper, or they want some kind of watermark on the paper. So, they specify their requirements, and accordingly the company B will provide the product to them. So, this is a kind of modification of the straight rebuy, but problem arises when you are going for new task. New task means when the company is going to buy a totally different kind of machine. So, in that case, or a totally new product, this is a new company is opening up, a new factory is coming up. So, this kind of situations. So, here what happens, it actually has to pass through all the stages of industrial buying decision making once again, and this is it's almost like an complex buying decision in the individual purchase decision stage. And we also talk about the types of industrial demand. Mainly there are a few, 5 mainly. A is the derived demand, as I have already mentioned, that the demand for the industrial product is actually derived from the demand in the consumer market, the demand for the finished product in the consumer market. As the raw cotton or the textile machineries would be demanded based on the demand of the textile cotton cloths. Volatile demand, derived demand results in ups and downs in the business market. So, this is referred as volatile demand. especially the demand for capital resources is sometimes even more volatile than the consumer demand. For example, sales volume for a gasoline retailer escalates at an annual rate of 6%, then nosedives with an 4% annual increase. This deceleration may appear to the firm as the real slump, and it may keep some of its current gasoline pumps, which is capital expense, inactive and restart them only when the market condition gets better. There is something which is known as joint demand. There are certain complementary products like printer and cartridge, some machine and machine oil, so car and brake oil. So, all these kind of products, these are joint demands. So, the demand for one product depends on the other. Industrial demand is sensitive to the demand to a price, and if it is demand, usually it has to be ideally any product is we assume that it is elastic to demand, but in most of the cases for industrial product the demand is very inelastic. So, which means this is probably because of the derived demand only, because if the cotton textile product is demanded, even if the price of raw cotton grows up or the cotton textile machinery grows up, the cotton textile mills will continue to purchase those things, because the final demand for the textile garment is high. So, it is inelastic, it is one side, it is inelastic to the price of raw cotton or the cotton textile machineries. It will only fluctuate or become elastic if there is some elasticity noticed in the cotton textile garments. If that changes, that fluctuates, then this will also this side will also fluctuate. Then another important part is the inventory adjustment. The adjustment in the quantity of inventory that affect business demand are referred to as inventory adjustment. Suppose a textile manufacturer takes a 70-day supply of new materials as the optimal inventory level. In this situation, if suddenly economic conditions or other factors tempt these firms to augment their inventories up to 100-day supply, then an alteration will result in a sharp increase of new orders for the raw material suppliers. However, in case of just-in-time system, the question of inventory does not arise. Normally, in these cases, electronic data interchange services or EDI enables the organization to buy different equipments to complete the transaction. Now, of late Japan is using for some companies JIT2, and it is the most recent inventory trend that heartens suppliers to position representatives at the buyer's place to perform a branch of an integrated and on-site customer supplier group. In this case, the suppliers design and place orders based on the discussion with the buyer. This reorganization of the inventory management procedure provides a better control of the flow of goods or allows for greater efficiency by cost optimization in the entire supply chain. Now, in short, I will just discuss about the factors that influence the organizational buying. These are the factors which influence the organizational buying. A is the environmental factor. These factors comprise of the financial, social, political, this is technical, legal, infrastructural, demographic and the cultural factors. For example, the technical status of the country the technical status of the engineers, the way their learning status, their technical know-how, all this actually matters during the procurement. If in general the engineering education is not up to the mark for a country X, then high tech, using high tech machinery and all this will require immense training. So, sometimes the companies may not be in a position to implement this kind of system. Country's cultural ambience sometimes may not allow the organizational sellers to perform JIT2 kind of inventory, because that kind of professionalism, that kind of road infrastructure may not be there in the country. So, these are some of the factors which may hinder. This is some environmental factors. There could be some factors within the organization also. It is like their objectives, their procedures, the organizational structure, tall structure, flat structure. If it is a government organization, of course, the procedure would be little less speedy, because lot of hierarchy, the files has to pass through different hierarchy, and that may take little more time for an order to get passed. So, sometimes it may be very faster decision when the control is much more decentralized. Then in India, the contemporary studies portray that there exist some critical parameters influencing the business buying structures and systems. What are those? The innovativeness related to the particular purchase. How innovative you are. Secondly, surfacing of buyer as the vital constituent of the buying center. Third, centralization and decentralization of input procurement process. This right now I have already mentioned. Automation of the buying process, whether I have EDI system or not. If I do not have, if my engineers are not so capable of using EDI system, then of course I cannot have a system like Walmart in US, or I cannot have a system like Amazon.com or eBay.com. The way they use the EDI system and ship the product very fast to the customers, I may not be able to actually be resorting to that kind of system unless my engineers and my system is adaptable to that. Involvement of purchase specialist, how far the finance manager would be involved, how far the marketing manager would be involved, how far the engineer would be involved in this purchase. So, and it actually determines the nature of purchase also. If the finance manager is very influential, then the purchase decision would be very price sensitive. If the engineer or the quality control officer is more inclined, or the production manager is more influential, then the decision would be more towards quality oriented. In general, I am saying there can be exceptions. Capacity of the firms to avoid detrimental dealings between buyers and sellers, and appreciation at the top level, how fast the top level appreciates the buying process. Then there are certain interpersonal factors. Organizational buying involves multiple individuals in the purchase process. So, the process turns out to be even more complicated due to different goals, status, authority, control, persuasiveness of each constituents. The finance manager is trying to control the cost, the production manager is wanting the best quality, so he wants to, that will result in increase in cost. Marketing manager wants the increase in cost of sales by promoting. He does not want increase in cost of sales, but if he says that he wants more promotion or he wants to give more margin to the distributors, so in that case the cost of sales will go up, where the finance manager might oppose because he has to optimize the cost. So, then because of this multiple goals, there can be a conflict scenario in buying situation. Some other individual factors are also there. Like an industrial marketer should be aware that it may be the supplier's finance department or the purchase department. The purchase decision will be actually executed by a group of human beings. So, as these individuals forming the group, they are coming from diverse socioeconomic statures and having unique personality, a certain set of learned predisposition, a particular organizational task to execute, and perception at the finest truth to fulfill both personal and organizational objective is very important. The finance manager, for example, may know of company A, may know that if I increase the cost a bit, I may end up in a very good purchase of a machinery, but I am in verge of my promotion. So, I want to just optimize the cost. So, my personal goal in this case is superseding the organizational goal. So, this kind of situation can also occur because these are actually dealt by human beings and a group of human beings. Possibly, an analytical insight on the perceived risk and its management of the individual stakeholders of the organization may provide the industrial marketer an opportunity to smoothen the organizational decision making process. So, principally there are four factors those shape the individual's purchase risk, and these are the characteristics of the purchase problem, characteristics of the buyer itself, the organizational environment, and the management of perceived risk. The characteristic of the purchase problem encompasses the size of the expenditure. If it is a high volume purchase, the degree of novelty of the buy, is a new purchase or not, the degree of the essentiality of the product, it is immediately required, or I can buy it little later, or any other factors. So, these are some of the factors which are called as the characteristics of the purchase problem, which will influence the buying decision. On the other hand, the characteristics, because here the perceived risk could be much higher. So, therefore, the involvement of all the entities like purchase, finance, then the production will be very high. So, on the other hand, the characteristics of the buyer comprises of product specific self confidence level, experience, purchase history, degree of technical and professional appreciation of the buyer, the standing of the individual in the organization, how powerful he is, and the extent of decentralization, how much power and control he has on the purchase decision. So, at this point, the organizational marketer needs to understand that fundamentally in any organization an individual apprehends two kinds of perceived risk. One is the performance risk, where he thinks that the product might be unsuccessful in terms of performance benchmark. The other is the psychological risk, which he refers to the individual's anxiety of being held accountable for such purchase failure or product failure. Both these apprehensions, however, link to the fear of choosing a wrong product or vendor ultimately. An industrial marketer must make an effort to appreciate and foresee the possible domains of perceived risk and develop effective selling strategies accordingly. And Jagdish Sheth in 1973 has identified that in case of conflict situation, the organizational members usually go for the same for conflict resolution techniques as I have mentioned in the family decision making model also. The first one is the problem solving. This is the approach of acquisition and information, dissemination of more information so that they can revise their decision. Then is persuasion, which means one member is or some members are influencing the rebellious members in order to satisfy everybody's objective as well as the organizational objective. Third is the bargaining, that is between two parties to resolve the conflict, that this time you listen to me, next time we will listen to your group. So, this kind of thing. And finally, is the politicking, which means that if all the aforesaid things are gone in vain, the conflicting bodies they resort into politicking. This route is actually harmful from the institutional context, because it can harm the harmony of the organization and create a groupism in the organization. Everybody will try to be very close to the top management, and they may resort to different kind of wrong process for that. So, this is in short the first module of organizational buying behavior, and in the next module we will discuss about the models of organizational buying process. Thank you.